Did you manifest building and exiting a $48 million business in 48 months?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know if the 48 months was a part of my manifestation, but absolutely, yeah. To build something that would sell, and also who would buy it, and we would role play the details of the deal before we'd even made $1,000 a day. So it was very much always a part of the plan and a part of the manifestation.
It seemed like Hush started really quick. Like the days of like one sale to 3 sales to 10 sales, like it happened really quick. How were you able to get so specific on that manifestation?
You know, I always share that. That's a funny joke. I say that, we got into weighted blankets. And the best thing about us getting into weighted blankets was that there wasn't too many people in there. People say, oh, it's nice not to have a lot of competition.
Mhm.
I said, no, we actually didn't ruin that many people's lives. And then everyone's like, what does that mean? Like, you ruining people's lives with blankets? And I say, well, imagine we wanted to sell phone cases, like iPhone phone cases.
Mhm.
Think about how many people sell phone cases. We would have ruined so many of those people's lives because we were so serious and all in and had no other option when we started this business that most entrepreneurs don't really give themselves the opportunity to experience that. What I mean by that is they have multiple projects, multiple businesses, multiple ideas, seeing which one sticks, which one doesn't. And I love tasting things, but when we started Hush, we had no option other than success. We had nowhere else to go. And when people say, was it surprising that you made 1 sale, 3 sales, 5 sales, 10 sales, eventually selling the company? The answer is no. There was no other choice for us.
I think if you saw the work behind the scenes too, from at least hearing your story, it would be surprising if it was surprising because you were putting in the work every single day to make it happen. But that mindset of going and this is the only option seems like it came a lot from your parents and your journey early on in entrepreneurship. Do you feel like that kind of perspective was taken, or those character traits were taken from your parents?
Yeah, I grew up to two immigrant parents, so I got to watch them, struggle for 20 years. That typical immigrant story, coming to Canada, 3 kids, end up having another two more, 5 kids, parents barely speaking the native language, doing whatever. My mom would drive a short bus to drive us to school. She figured out how I can make money driving to school, just like, I got to drive you anyways. Might as well make money. Cleaning houses, my dad driving a truck. I learned early on what no excuses really meant because their why for what they do, my mom literally cleaning houses and my dad driving a truck all over the place, not being home, not being able to spend time with his family is their why was to take care of the family. That's a pretty strong why, they put their life on the line for it, which is why I always find, if I do invest or I do work with entrepreneurs, it's always, why are you doing this? And granted, a lot of people want to make some money, and I love that. Great, make money, but there's a million ways to make $1 million. Why this one? Why this way? And sometimes there's an incredible story behind that, and that story, it gets you excited enough to want to bet on that entrepreneur. And I always say to people, when someone tells you their business, real quick, they just tell you their business. You have no idea what they just said. You're like, I don't know what you just said. Like, I don't understand AI, this, that. Like, it's confusing. Like, I don't get the business. It's not like, yo, I'm selling hats. And you leave not knowing the business, but you leave saying whatever that person's doing, and they're going to crush it.
Yeah.
And then you go and you tell someone, you're like, that guy, he's got this crazy business. I don't really get it, but it's crazy. Right. And what did that person receive? They don't even know what the business is. They don't know the P&L. They don't know any of the financial. They don't know any detail about what's going on behind the scenes. But what they do know is the entrepreneurial spirit behind it. And that's what sucks people in. And that's the definition of a soulful founder versus someone who's just looking to make some money.
Yeah, there's an energy to certain people. It's like if I could invest into a person like it was a stock, like I would have invested in you 10 years ago if I knew, and if people were to know, right? And I'm curious from your perspective of that, because you seem like a very spiritual person, yet also so intensely business minded. What are the traits or habits or characteristics that you noticed in those kind of people that you would bet on them? And I bet you're one of them as well.
Yeah, I love a good story. I'm a big storyteller. I love to know the reason why people tick, why they chose this path in life. Entrepreneurship is arguably the most rewarding, but statistically the worst possible path for a human to take because the odds are stacked against you. Many, many, many variables are out of your control. And if you do make any sort of noise out there in the world, then you got a tidal wave of competition coming your way.
Mhm.
So why would you choose this? And the why to me is the definition of an entrepreneur. Someone who gets up every single day, knows that they have a tidal wave waiting for them on the outside of their bedroom or the second they open their phone, and chooses to go to war. And for me, those are the types of people that I love, maybe because I'm one of them. And I find it extremely inspiring. But now, being 12 years in to this entrepreneurial game, I would say, because it very much is a game, I've learned that the soul and that little small entrepreneur that has this big dream, willing to take someone's head off to get it, has a much bigger impact on the world than we think. I thought I was just selling weighted blankets so that I could build something to take care of my family. It's a very noble, very small goal. Up in Canada, at least where I'm from, entrepreneurship is down 40%, and not down 40% from the peak,
Mhm.
down 40% from last year. So it's down hundreds of percent
Yeah.
from the peak. And that is a destructive sign to any economy, because if we don't stimulate entrepreneurship and give entrepreneurs the tools to go out and create, make mistakes, and bring value to the world, we're going to be stuck in a situation where jobs are lost, small businesses are lost, and overall the economy is going to start to suffer. In Canada, we're actually starting to see that, right? We're starting to see the GDP literally fall from the sky. And you look at successful countries, successful organizations, entrepreneurs are the blood that flows through the artery of an ecosystem. And it's almost like the gladiators on the front line going to war. It's the people who are most likely going to die, but the ones who get through are always the hero. And that's how I like to view entrepreneurs.
That's a good view of it. I think it's really true. It's the people that create opportunities where most people don't see opportunities. When it comes to being an entrepreneur, what do you think the most underrated quality of an entrepreneur is?
I think the best entrepreneurs, at least, because some do crumble, but I think if you are a true entrepreneur, your ability to be solution oriented
Mm,
with a little sprinkle of delusion. I find that mix between, like, I'll solve it, and not only will I solve it, it will be better
mm,
without any data, is the most inspiring entrepreneur. And employees, if you eventually have them or you do have them, are pulled towards that type of person. And no matter what problem comes their way, not only will we figure it out because that is the ethos, we're solution oriented, but we'll figure it out 10 times better and it'll never happen again. And I feel like that is the entrepreneur.
Dude, like I was diving into your story. I think it was when you were 19, you did a really big like spiritual retreat in a sense, and then you also did a break Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within at a really young age too. Like,
Yeah, Tony. Yeah, I did a men's retreat when I
yeah,
was
yeah,
19 in Montreal, and it was the most powerful transformation of my entire life.
yeah.
And I think it was my first entry into being, like, spiritual in a way, like getting to know why I move the way I move.
Mhm,
Like, who made me this way, at 19, and why am I working from 8 in the 6 in the morning, sometimes opening up a juice store until 12 o'clock at night? Like, why? I'm 19. I should be partying. I should be out there and with my friends. Why do I want to do this?
yeah.
And it was my first entry into learning who I am, really.
When I heard that, I thought I'm so similar in that sense because people look at me like I'm crazy when I just turned 21 not too long ago, and I've been in this space since I was like 17. And when I think of investing or of spending money, I don't think of buying a car. I think of investing into a retreat or a coaching program in Austin next year that I'm going to. Like that's what really excites me. But Where did that come from for you? And how did that really expand your mindset early on in your life?
The truth is, I got lucky.
Mm.
I was working the front counter at one of our juice shops, and a man came in, and he'd come in every day. I always say, someone who goes in the same juice shop every day, you have a better relationship with the person on the other side of that counter than most people in your life because you see
Yeah.
them every single day. We kind of became friends, and actually, my little brother did the retreat.
When he was like
Um,
16, right?
yeah, like
Insane.
a couple of weeks before, he was like 16 years old. Came back, obviously had crazy things to say, and I was going through the Kickstarter, planning the Kickstarter, and like
Mhm.
all that stuff in my mind, and I was just like kind of called to it. You get this feeling of like this is where I want to be, and I always say like that mix of like my gut telling me I want to do something, but also a little bit of fear
Mhm.
is the perfect kind of combination of like, all right, I got to take this leap. Sometimes it's too easy, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go, yeah, I'll travel there, yeah, no problem. But there's got to be a little sense of fear, like, wait a second,
Yeah.
like I'm about to be very vulnerable. I'm about to go into a space that I've never been in before. I don't know how I'm gonna come out of it. And that for me was like that perfect recipe of like, maybe I'll do this. And it was like the dead cold of the winter in the middle of Montreal, snow like above the door. And we're in this like random cabin, and I'm like, yo, go.
It's crazy to think because your seems like going into those, it seems as though you have an abundance mindset from the jump. Right? Like you're building businesses with your family. You're at like, I think early on in like ninth grade was when you really took like that first at bat at like entrepreneurship and got into it. But when you sold your business, you moved home for 8 months and didn't spend a dollar, like unless it was like on your mom for her dream car. So how has your, how does that make any sense coming from that place of getting so started so early, yet when you sell and seemingly everything, you have no problems now from the outside, it's like you revert back to before you even went to that first retreat, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would say like when you go through an exit of I would say a life-changing exit, because sometimes you sell like something for a couple hundred grand or something, which is great too, but I wouldn't call it life-changing. But when you go through a life-changing exit at 26 years old, there's a lot of eyes on you, and people come out of the woodworks, and everyone's got an ask, and everyone, you're this guy that, and you publicly have money.
Yeah.
It's different than just having money and then having a big public moment. And the public moment is not like I signed a new contract with a new job, and everyone's like, no, the headline is I made money. That's
Mhm.
literally the headline, and exactly how much. That's the headline. It's not anything else. Like Aaron is a good guy. He worked really hard. No, no one doesn't say that. It's literally like Aaron made this amount of money.
Yeah.
That's the headline. Everyone's happy. So with that comes a lot of unwanted attention. Some wanted, some unwanted. And, you know, I wanted to get really comfortable with what that meant for me. And, obviously I bought my mom that car, and there's a great story behind it. But, I did that the day of. Like took the money, deposited it, and then went to the other teller. It was like, write me a check because I'm going to go buy a car. And so I would say that moving home was a moment to reconnect, I would
Mhm.
say. A story that I told myself I needed. But looking back now, I would say I just didn't trust myself. Like I didn't need to move home. I could have just went and got a simple condo for a few grand a month. Would have had the same narrative, but I didn't trust myself. I didn't. A lot of people told me you lose your mind, blah blah blah. Like I had all these negative things coming my way, and I said, I need to create a barrier. I need to create a wall. I'm gonna move home and spend time at home, 6 7 months, and I'm gonna travel to places that don't know me. So I spent time in New York. No one knew me in New York because there's a million people there. And, I flew to Europe. I flew to the Middle East. I flew all over the place. I spent time in different places, and spent like a good 3 to 6 months just being with myself, which in hindsight was probably one of the best decisions I made.
What was it about that time with yourself that really, I guess, shaped your relationship with yourself now? Because I think for, like you said, a lot of people, you exit and they think that all of your problems are solved because the money problem is solved. And I think for so many people, at least the people I've been able to speak to that have sold companies for tens of millions, hundreds of millions, they realize that money isn't everything when they get it, because they had to get to that point, though. They had to achieve it to realize it wasn't it.
Yeah, James, you're a smart dude. You're a very, very smart dude. Listen, and I forget who told me this. I forget which one of my mentors told me, but I was trying to buy a car. And like a exotic car, a really nice car, $300,000-$400,000 car. So I called my mentor. I said, "Listen, you have a lot of nice cars. What do you think? Like, what should I get?" And he said, "Has anyone told you not to buy the car yet?" I said, "Yeah, everyone. That's why I'm calling." But no one has the car, like, so you have the car. So I'm gonna call you because you drive it. And he said, "Well, they're probably right. They're probably right. You probably shouldn't buy the car. It doesn't make sense. You're gonna lose money on it. It's a waste. You're young. It's other things you should be focusing on, whatever." And then he followed up to share something with me that I think you just touched on. And everyone needs to remember this. The only way to know that you don't want a Ferrari is to buy one. Anyone who says, "Oh, I don't need a bigger house. I don't need a wife. I don't need a partner. Whatever I don't need." And you're like, "But you've never had one," is not someone you want in your circle. And what does that mean? It means that you're surrounded, or you're allowing people to communicate their limiting beliefs about their own life onto you. And you're like, "Yeah." Like, people are like, You don't buy that car." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." They're like, "Oh, I saw a YouTube video and the guy, had a horrible experience." And I'm like, "What?" Like, you're telling me that I'm not going to enjoy something that you can't enjoy either. And I'm going to, like, the whole thing is backwards. Anyone that has anything will never tell you to buy it or not to buy it, because we all know what happens on the other side of buying something is you either fall deeper in love or you realize you don't want it, which is a very normal thing. I bought I bought the really nice car. In my case, it was stolen,
I
which
was
is
just gonna
worse.
say,
It was it was
that.
stolen. It was 10 times worse. But then I got the money back from the insurance, and I was like, "All right, am I going to buy the same car?" And I realized, I don't need it. I got it already. I felt it. It's good, but I'm cool with something else. Was that the advice that other people told me? Absolutely. But for them, it came from a limiting place. For me, it came from, like, I tasted it, I had it, I enjoyed it, I'm cool without it now. That is a big, big point that people need to realize. It's one of my biggest pet peeves where someone goes, "Oh, I don't need to fly first class." It's like, "But have you?" "No, I haven't, but, like, I'm good in the back of the plane." It's like, you're literally just taking your life and you're shrinking it to a box so that you don't feel the pressure of what it means to reach for something outside of that box. And it's a big distinction that, especially, young guy like yourself, you're surrounded by a lot of individuals now because you're out there in the world. You've got, bigger guys you're interviewing and meeting, and you're out there and you're doing the Austin stuff. Like, you're exposed to a huge range of people. The frequency that you choose to tune into will literally determine the type of life that you bring into yourself. And it's a beautiful thing, but also a scary thing, because it's inevitable that majority of the people that we surround ourselves with, whether it's full-time, part-time, sometimes, have limiting beliefs. All of my billionaire friends, I don't think I've ever heard that something wasn't possible. Even something that they don't have. I'll give you a quick example. I was just in Abu Dhabi for F1. My first time going to F1. Probably one of the coolest things of all time. Highly recommend that everyone do at least once. And it was very eye-opening for me. One of my mentors said, "What did you learn? How was it? Like, was there any takeaways you have?" And I said, "Well, for the first time in my life, I realized that there was another class to wealth. Like, I always knew there was, like, the rich people, then, like, the wealthy people who are, like, beautiful houses, they have it all. And then there's, like, the billionaires, which are just, like, mega powerful." When I went there, I realized that there's another class. And that class was status. It didn't matter how much money you had, you weren't getting into certain booths. You could be, you can fly on your helicopter and park your super yacht you're just not getting into certain sections. It didn't matter. These tickets don't have prices. And my point is, even those people had limiting beliefs. And me and my friend, probably the two poorest guys there, we're like, yo, we're getting into that booth. Like we're getting in. We stand outside. We talk to people. An hour and a half later, the guy comes up to us at the front door. He's like, listen, guys, I'm gonna give you the passes, but no problems. We're like, boom, we're in the booth. Even at that level, people say, oh, it's easy not to have limiting beliefs. You have a lot of money. It's like, I watched billionaires get turned away from the door and then walk the other way and had a limiting belief that they weren't special enough to get in. And me, my idiot friend, got in no problem because we didn't take no for an answer. The whole time up the stairs, we were saying to ourselves, we're getting in, we're getting in, we're getting in, we're getting in, we're getting in. And then even when we met resistance, we're like, buddy, we're getting in. And we were in. So it's important to know that, like, money just doesn't solve these mental things. Money doesn't solve your limiting beliefs. Money doesn't solve your circle. Money doesn't solve what you attract into your life. It really is your thoughts. And you have to be careful of the words that you say. You have to be careful of the words that you speak to others, because you're literally speaking out into the universe, and you can get woo-woo or not. It's happened to me a million times. I can give you a list of times I've said something and it happens. And you got to be careful, because oftentimes we're more negative than we are positive.
100%. And I've heard you speak about how intentional you are with your words that you use, and I am that friend for most people that if they're using limiting language, I'm going to call them out on it, and it's probably annoying the amount of times I do it, but it's I'm very intentional about the words that I use as well. And I want to touch on why it's so important to realize that money isn't everything, because I think it almost is a amplifier of the problems in your life. If you have enough money, then the
Ooh.
money problem is solved. And so then you look at the other things that are going on in your life, and yeah, man, it's a tough thing, but it's really fascinating to know how, like you said, your friend and the people that you surround yourself with are a really big thing. The guy that you built Hush with was doing so much more than you were at that period of time. I remember the story that you guys were telling when you guys were in the bar. You're making 10K, and you're like, I'm him. Like yeah, I'm
Yeah.
making 10K. Like what about you, man? And he's talking 50, 60,000. And how did that expand your mindset? Because I think it's really difficult for a lot of people to surround themselves with the right people, to not have them place their own limitations on you, because it's really hard to denounce your desires, but so many of us are doing it because that's what we're surrounded by.
Yeah, you know what? One of the secret sauces of being young, because I'm assuming people listening to this are young, and young to me is like at least some like 20 to 40, right? You're just getting going, right?
Yeah.
Um, the difference that I find, at least on my journey so far, when I meet a young guy that's up and coming, that's buzzing around, that's moving pace, like just is they're out there putting themselves in rooms that they probably shouldn't be in. They're showing up to conferences. They're challenging being uncomfortable, and they're meeting people. One of my greatest moments, I would say, is, Hush was doing $1 million a year. It was basically our first year. I was working the juice business from 6 a.m. till 3 or 4 p.m. And then at 5 p.m., I'd meet up with Lior, my co-founder in Hush, and we would work from 5 to 12, 5 to 1, depending on the day. Gary Vee decides to come to Toronto and do a conference, whatever, where he speaks. And I'm like, there's 3,000 people here. I don't want to be in the crowd. I'm going to go talk to Gary. And I walked in, made fake badges. Next thing you know, I'm in the speaker booth, backstage, 5 of us. One of them me, one of them Gary. He's got no idea who I am. And then there's a moment where I'm like, eventually I'm going to get thrown out of here. So I'm going to get my question in.
Mhm.
And this is where I was actually introduced to limiting beliefs. And I said, Gary, listen, I got a weighted blanket business, $1 million a year, I'm trying to go 10 million. Do you think I can do it? And he goes, you know, he's actually quite rude. What a stupid question. Like, if I was running your business, if I was you, if I was the CEO of whatever your business is called, you think I'd be able to do it?
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah, I mean, obviously you're Gary Vee, but maybe you'll do 50 million.
Right.
Um, and he's just like, but I don't know anything even about your business. You know way more than me. So it's just a story that you tell yourself. And it was like he instilled the confidence in me to be able to 10x the business. And that's exactly what we did that year. And sometimes I think about it and say, like, why didn't I say 20? Why did I only say 10?
Mhm.
And I went and said, 1 to 10, boom, done. And the next question I had was, do you think it's cool what I'm doing? I'm doing this whole, like, I'm working like from 6 a.m. till 12 o'clock at night, like all day. I think it was, is there any other choice? You- And I look back on it, you know, as a 20, whatever, 21, 22-year old, and I think everyone in my life was telling me I was crazy,
Mhm.
wasting my life. Go be a 21-year-old. There's time for work later, which is probably true. And it wasn't until someone that I was outside of my circle that had no affiliation with me was just like, yeah, dude, you're doing great. You're doing great. It validated everything, and it
Yeah.
created a shield around me of like no one can come in and mess with my shit. And that was the beginning of me understanding, wow, the people around me really do have an influence in the way I think. Because I had a lot of guilt of living this type of life, you know, and if it wasn't for people like Gary and other people that I was able to put myself in those rooms, go to those conferences, be that young guy. People love young energy, love it.
Yeah.
Be the young guy, be curious, ask a lot of questions. If I didn't go and carve that circle of people for me, there's no way I would be who I am because everyone around me wanted to limit me with love. By the way, it wasn't
Yeah.
malicious. They didn't see it for me the way these random people who are living the life that I want to live did. And I would say it's the secret hack as young guys. You got to get out in every, I would do, if I'm a 21-year-old entrepreneur right now, I would make a list of all the events that I want to
Mhm.
go to this year. I would work my ass off to be able to afford it, get there, and I'd be at every single one. Some of my best friends I met because they snuck, like even now, because now, you know, I'm in the speaker lounge, life's a little different. I always pay attention to the little rats that sneak in, and I always go and say, what's up? Because I'm like, I was you. Like, boom, I bring them in, and like, they're a part of the crew. They have the best time of their life because I'm like, that's the definition of what entrepreneurship is. When someone tells you no, you don't even hear it. It just like slides off you. You're going to get in with good intention. And every conference I go to, I pay attention. I call them the rats, but with good love. I pay attention to the rats, and I'm like, yes, these are my men. These are my girls. These are my guys that coming in. And if you're not willing to do that, I mean, it's again good reflection points. It's like, why am I scared to get out there in the world?
So true, man. And I think it's so important to get out of your circle because you're right. I mean, the people that you're surrounded with see you as of your past self, and they can never see you as the person that you want to become. And so they're always going to limit you to the person, to the box that they place you in of the person that they see you as. And until you step out of that and surround yourself with other people, I remember I hired my first coach, and I was in a coaching program of like 1,000 coaches. I was the youngest coach. It was the first time I had someone believe in me more than I believed in myself, and it expanded my mind more than anything, made me aware of my limiting beliefs, so many other things. And I think it really is powerful. And even if investments too, because a lot of people are scared of making investments to go to conferences or keynotes, whatever it is, even if you didn't get what you thought you'd get out of it, the relationships that you'll build in those rooms are worth the money. I found that for every investment that I've ever made. And I'm curious, you were speaking about it earlier, and you have this tenacity to you of working from like just sleeping for like 4 hours for like years of your life, it seems like. But it's not only the tenacity and the ambition that you have. What do you think that your best asset is that maybe is overlooked and you didn't realize earlier in your life?
Yeah, I think that changed, right? Like certain times I thought I was the best creative, the best marketer, the best leader, the best manager. You know, entrepreneurs wear all the hats. But as I've matured and as the businesses have grown and I've hired people in those roles, and every time I hire someone really good, I'm like, wow, that person's way better than me.
Right.
Maybe I'm not that good. But I would say when it comes to business, I'm incredibly good. I think most founders are at injecting the soul into the business. And I've seen that in businesses that I've started and I've left. They kind of exist at room temperature. Sometimes the founder is the one person that brings the heat. And they can be happening in so many different ways. Sometimes it's actually going out there in the world and stirring up the pot for your business and driving attention, leadership, inspiring people to join the company, recruiting, product innovation, negotiating with suppliers, negotiating with vendors, negotiating with energies. It's very important as a founder. I would say my next thing, and I only literally learned this a week ago, which is crazy. At 29, 30, 30 in 2 weeks. We just hosted a retreat for the Founders Club, which is one of our founder communities that I started. And leaving the retreat, we did a survey form. And my survey forms, some people's survey forms, you know, it's like, tell me what I did, try to make themselves feel good. Mine is only like bad questions. Like, what did you not like? What would you change? Like, what would you criticize this person about? Like, I want to know that that's what feedback is, right? Like, I love feedback. It's how I get better. I never take it personally. I think no entrepreneur should.
Mhm.
And one of the feedback forms was I wanted to spend more time with Aaron. So that was interesting to me because of 50-person retreat. And I did not lead all the programming. I'm very against singular person anything.
Yeah.
A big uh, concern of mine is if someone's like, "Oh, I joined a community, I joined this, I joined that," and then the next thing that comes out of their mouth is, "It's by so and so." It's like, well, that so and so isn't that special, so I'm not going to join, even if it's Warren Buffett. It doesn't matter. The whole idea of doing something in a group is that the container is special, not the
Right.
one person speaking. And so I reached out to that person, and I said, first of all, I thought we did spend some good time together. We had some good combos, but like, what does that mean? And the conclusion that came out of it was my energy is very magnetic, and it kind of got in my head a little bit. So then I reached out to like another 20, 30 people that came, and I said, would you agree with this?
Mm.
And it turns out that what I've taken that, I looked through my whole life, and a lot of people, my kind of told me that my energy dictates the energy for the group. So if I'm up, everyone's up. If
Mhm.
I'm not feeling great, no one's feeling great. And then I started to look back on my journey a little bit. And I started to realize, like, when I had doubts about my business, my sales would come down. When I was bullish on my business, sales would go up. If I was excited about a new product launch, it crushed. If I was negative about a product launch, it didn't crush. But I didn't do any of the work. Like, I was never like the guy who was going to launch the website or write the email or rip the ad. Like, but why? And I started to realize that I've always been an energy individual, but I've always internalized it. So one of my superpowers is giving other people the room to explore their own energy and let me raise the bar for you. And that happens within organizations, that happens within my friend groups, that happens within my family. I set the tone. It's a really big role because that means I always got to be energized. So it's a very big role. But yeah, 10, 12 years in, I'm still learning a lot about myself, and that's like something that I probably always had, but never was, attuned to. It was like, wow, like I I really is this way.
Right. Yeah. You've always been a spiritual person, and manifestation, scripting, breath work, meditation, visualization, all that kind of stuff has seemingly been a big part of your journey for business, for life in general. What is it about those practices that have stuck with you for so long, and how can other people put them into their lives? Because I think a lot of people see manifestation as this thing you put it out into the world, you hope it happens, you do some work, and you hope it just eventually shows up. But yours is a lot more deliberate and intentional. I'm curious where that comes from and how that's evolved.
Like I wanted it so bad to the point where, like, when I say things like the phone cases, when I say things like I would have ripped someone's head off, when I say things like for 4 years, not only did I not sleep more than 4 hours a night, I never actually slept. It was just naps. I would take micro naps throughout the day.
Long blinks.
Um, I would I would I would know where every single person that was competing with me, I knew everything about them. I knew where my competitors liked to eat. I knew the type of lifestyle they liked. I knew where they lived. Like, they live in a fancy house, they live in a condo. I would re-engineer their life to the point where I would drown their business because I knew how much I need to take from it. We would sell $20 million a year, and I was DJing on the weekend, so I didn't take a dollar from the business. I DJ'd a party one time, and people would take selfies with me to make fun of me and tell me, "Oh, I thought you were this guy on TV." I was sponsored the Montreal Canadiens, and I was DJing weddings, and
DJ
people
never
would be
left.
like, "This guy's a phony. He's got a fake business. If he had a real business, he wouldn't be DJing." And I would be like, if only you knew. If
Mhm.
only you knew." And I didn't care. And the reason I didn't care is because was my why was so strong, and I was willing to do whatever. And like some people say it, I still am willing to do whatever. I had a new friend of mine, 2 years, like just 2, 3 years we've been friends, tell me like a couple of days ago, he's like, "Buddy, like, you work way too much." And I said, "If you think this, like, I'm the first one to say, I do not work the way I used to work now. Not even close, okay? And I'm like, if you think this is working too much, 6, 7, 8 hour days, you have no idea. You would have hated the version of me when I was building. And the reason I bring that up, because to answer your question, I would listen to every single Tony Robbins, any person,
Yeah.
Gary, Tony, Eric Thomas, every single person, every podcast. I would say manifestations into my phone for a minute, and I would describe my future life, buy my mom a car, be able to buy my own house. I've always wanted a house in Miami, you know, describe my future relationship, describe my life, describe my friends in real time as if it was in the present, my business sold, and it feels so incredible to know that I can take care of myself and my family, and people respect me as an entrepreneur because I had a lot of limiting beliefs, and now they understand. And I would record it, and then I would play it in my ears every single time I would take a nap. People think that's insane. Looking back, probably was, but it's not. There was no other option for my life. And do I think in order to be a successful entrepreneur, that's what you need to do? I've seen it happen in many different ways. I've seen it happen in many, many different ways. But I think as an 18, 19, 20-year-old entrepreneur with no experience and nothing but your own willpower, you got to go to those levels. Because looking back at 19, my competitors were 35, 36, 37. I'm turning 30 now. If a 19-year-old G tries to compete with me, he's going up against my 10 years of experience, my 10 years of connections, people I know. I know way more. But I'm not going to go back to just naps. I'm not going to go back to like that level of extremism. So that was the competitive edge. And that's what got me into this, because it started to work. It started to work, like working out at 4:30 in the morning at 19. Trust me, I was in that gym at 4:30 in the morning. There was no 19-year-olds there. I never saw one. It was just me, a couple grandmas, and like a couple people trying to get after it before work. I don't do it anymore because I don't have to, but that's what I had to do. And that was my entry into like getting spiritual, because it started to work.
That obsession is something that is common in most of successful people. It's hard to turn off when you're obsessed with something, and you are the DJ that never left, right? I mean, that started a long time ago, even when you were at Hush. So it makes a lot of sense, man. There's a million questions that I can ask you, but I want to ask one last question I ask every guest. My question to you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
That's a good one. Oof, what belief am I currently unlearning? Oof, there's a handful of them. I would say currently unlearning the belief that in order to be happy, I need to have unlimited freedom. And that's a big one for me, because I built my life around that. I built my life around no one being able to tell me what to do, no one having control over me. No one being able to put me in a box, put me in a cage. Cage is a big word. And that free spirit that I can do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, is good energy. However, a lot of life's beauty and blossom comes from the opposite, comes from putting yourself in a box, comes from, in other words, the scary word, settling.
Yeah.
And being content, not complacent, content. And it's a journey that I'm on right now, just to almost kind of settle the dust and bring everything in. And some people confuse that with focus, which is not the case, because I'm focused. But my core belief is that I need to be a free spirit and be out into the world and have no one restrict me, because if you restrict me, it's going to create frustration and friction. And I'm unlearning that, because a lot of beauty in life, a lot of my mentors, a lot of people that I respect have beautiful boxes that they've built, that they've agreed to, that secrete a tremendous amount of power. But I've never been okay with it. So definitely unlearning that.
I love it, man. Your story is really, really inspiring, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from this. Like I said, I can ask you a million more questions, and would love to have you on again in the future, and hopefully we make it in person next time. But thank you for taking the time to speak with me, man.
Dude, thank you. This is fantastic.